So let's pick up where we left off, and we ended with the transitive property. So the transitive property looks like this. It says if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So it's essentially, I like to say it's eliminating the middleman. It just means that if two things are equal to the same thing, then those things are equal to each other. So since A and C are both equal to B, they're both equal to each other. So look through your little squares and see if you can find out which one of these represents the transitive property. So I think the best representation of the transitive property would be this one, okay? And let's see why. So if x plus y, so that's like our A, is equal to z, and then z is equal to b plus c, so that's that third item, then x plus y must be equal to b plus c. So since x plus y and b plus c were both equal to z, then they're equal to each other. Our next property that we have is the substitution property. So substitution is kind of similar to transitive, and it looks like this. And we say if A equals B, then B can replace A in an expression. So anytime you see A, you could plug in the letter B or the value for that. So take a look at your boxes and see which one of these best represents substitution. The best example of substitution is going to be this example right here. And it says if x plus y equals z and x equals p, then p plus y equals z. So we have x equaling p. So wherever x is, we're going to replace it with p. So if they started with x plus y equals z, it now becomes p plus y equals z. They're just replacing x with the value p. Now moving on to our last two little tabs. The first one are the properties of equality, addition and subtraction. That's why we have the plus and the minus. So properties of equality have to do with equations, which is why it's called property of equality. So the addition subtraction properties of equality say this: you can add or subtract the same value to both sides of an equation and the equation stays true. We've been doing this for years, ever since you've been solving equations. You've been adding or subtracting the same values from both sides, and we just haven't had a word for it. So see if you can find adding or subtracting both the same number from both sides. The best example is going to be this. So if you start with x plus 6 equals 10, notice in the next term, they're subtracting 6 from both sides of the equation. So that itself is the subtraction property of equality. And a lot of times you'll see me abbreviate it just POE for property of equality. So that's subtraction. Finally, we have properties of equality for multiplication and division. It's very similar to this. It just means that you can multiply or divide the same value to both sides of an equation and the equation stays true. So that's why we have one remaining little rectangle. Looks like this. And it's just saying we can we can multiply or divide an equation by the same number and it stays true. So they have if 6x equals 30, and then it looks like they divide both sides by 6 to get the next step. So this is the division property of equality. Again, you might see it written POE for property of equality. So these are all of our new vocabulary terms. So once you have this, you're going to flip it over, you're going to glue the back of this and stick it in your notebook for safekeeping. You don't want to lose this because you're going to use it for studying and doing your practice activities for this unit.